The kiss was supposed to be a lie. Talia Reid pressed her back against the restaurant's brick wall, heart hammering as the man in the expensive suit stepped closer. His dark eyes held desperation she'd never seen before, raw, unguarded panic that made her forget he was a stranger. "Please," he whispered, voice rough with an accent she couldn't place. "Just trust me for 30 seconds. She should have said no, should have walked away from whatever drama was unfolding in the alley behind La Lune Rossa. But something in his expression, the way his hands trembled despite his commanding presence, made her nod. He cupped her face with surprising gentleness. "I'm sorry," he breathed against her lips. Then he kissed her like his life depended on it. The world exploded into sensation, cedar and rain, warmth and desperation, the taste of wine and secrets. Her body responded before her mind could catch up, melting into him as voices echoed from the restaurant's back entrance. When he finally pulled away, she was breathless, and he was staring at her like she'd just saved his soul. "What the hell was that?" she whispered. His thumb brushed her cheek. "The beginning of everything. Welcome to Korean Mafia lovers. Hey there. Please let us know where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. Your support is essential for us to continue bringing you these stories." 3 hours earlier, Talia had been having the worst shift of her life. The dinner rush at La Lune Rossa was brutal on good nights. Tonight, with 2 servers called in sick and the kitchen backed up, it was pure chaos. Her feet ached in the cheap heels she couldn't afford to replace, and her manager Marco kept shooting her warning looks every time she fell behind. She couldn't afford to lose this job, not with her little brother's school fees due next week. Booth 23 had been empty all evening, the prime corner table that usually housed their most important clientele. Talia had just finished clearing the adjacent table when she heard Marco's voice drop to that particular tone he used for VIP customers. "Mr. Kang, your usual table is ready." She looked up to see a man in an immaculate charcoal suit walking through the restaurant like he owned it. Everything about him screamed power, from his confident stride to the way other diners' conversations quieted as he passed. His black hair was perfectly styled, and when he turned his head she caught a glimpse of sharp cheekbones and intense dark eyes. Behind him walked a small boy, maybe 8 years old, clutching a handheld gaming device. The child had the same dark hair and delicate features, but where the man's expression was unreadable, the boy's face was open and curious. "Daddy, can I have the pasta with the funny name?" the boy asked in accented English. "Pappardelle," the man corrected gently, his voice carrying a slight Korean accent. "And yes, Liam, whatever you want." They settled into booth 23, the man positioning himself with his back to the wall, eyes constantly scanning the room. It was a habit Talia recognized from her neighborhood, the kind of awareness that came from living with danger. She approached their table with practiced professionalism. "Good evening, I'm Talia, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with drinks?" The man's gaze flicked up to her, and for a moment something shifted in his expression. His eyes lingered on her face, not in the leering way she was used to from customers, but with genuine attention. "Water for both of us," he said quietly. "And?" He hesitated, studying the wine list. "What do you recommend?" It was an unusual question. Most customers in his price range ordered specific bottles without consulting the staff. "The Barolo is excellent," Talia offered. "Full-bodied, pairs well with our braised short ribs." He nodded slowly. "The Barolo. Thank you." As she walked away, she felt his eyes follow her. Not uncomfortable exactly, but intense, like he was memorizing details. When she returned with the wine and water, Liam looked up from his game with bright, curious eyes. "Are you from here?" he asked with the directness only children possessed. "Liam," his father warned quietly. "It's okay," Talia smiled. "I grew up about 20 minutes from here. What about you?" "We moved here from Seoul when I was little," Liam said proudly. "But Daddy says I'm American now, too." Mr. Kang watched this exchange with something that might have been relief, as if his son's easy interaction with her had passed some kind of test. "Have you decided on dinner?" Talia asked. The pappardelle for him, Mr. Kang said, and I'll take the short ribs you mentioned. As she wrote down their order, her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. A text from her brother Marcus. Tuition deadline moved up. Need $800 by Friday. Her stomach dropped. Friday was 3 days away. Even with tips, she was at least $200 short. Everything all right? Mr. Kang's voice was unexpectedly gentle. She looked up, realizing her distress must have shown on her face. Yeah, sorry, just family stuff. He studied her for a moment, then reached for his phone, which was buzzing insistently. His expression darkened as he read the screen. Whatever the message said, it transformed him from a concerned customer into something harder, more dangerous. Daddy? Liam looked worried. Is Uncle Han calling again? Mr. Kang's jaw tightened. Yes, but we're having dinner, it can wait. But the phone kept buzzing, text after text, each one making his expression more grim. When she brought their food, Liam was chattering about school while his father stared at his phone with the expression of a man facing execution. The pasta looks amazing, Liam said happily. Daddy, try some. But Mr. Kang barely seemed to hear him. His phone buzzed again, and this time when he read the message, all color drained from his face. As the evening wore on, more messages arrived. Each one seemed to tighten the noose around Mr. Kang's neck. He barely touched his food, instead watching the restaurant entrance with growing tension. Then, at exactly 9:30, everything changed. A group of well-dressed Korean men entered the restaurant, moving with coordinated precision. Behind them walked an elderly man in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expression stern and disapproving. And behind him, a young Korean woman in an elegant dress, beautiful and poised, but with eyes that held no warmth. Mr. Kang's phone buzzed one final time. He read the message, and his face went completely blank. Liam, he said quietly, I need you to stay right here, okay? But Daddy, please. His voice carried an authority that made the boy nod immediately. The conversation that followed was heated, conducted in rapid Korean. The elderly man's tone was sharp and demanding. The young woman stood silently, as if this entire scene was beneath her notice. Then the elderly man said something that made Mr. Kang's hands clench into fists. Talia was clearing a nearby table when she heard him respond in English. I said no, Uncle, I won't do it. The elderly man's face darkened. He gestured toward the young woman and spoke again in Korean, his meaning clear. This is your duty. Mr. Kang shook his head. I don't care about duty. I won't marry someone I don't love. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Every conversation in the restaurant had stopped. The elderly man stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Whatever he said made Mr. Kang's face go white. That's when Mr. Kang's eyes found Talia across the room, and something desperate and wild flickered in his expression. Excuse me, Mr. Kang called out, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent restaurant. Talia? Every head turned toward her. The elderly man frowned, clearly annoyed by the interruption. Talia's heart started racing. Yes, sir? Could you come here for a moment? She walked over, acutely aware of every eye in the place following her movement. Is everything all right? She asked quietly. Mr. Kang looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. When he spoke, his voice was steady, but his eyes held an apology. I need to ask you something, he said, and I need you to trust me. Before she could respond, he stepped closer and lowered his voice so only she could hear. These people are trying to force me into an arranged marriage, he whispered. The only way out is if I'm already committed to someone else. I know this is insane, but would you be willing to pretend to be my girlfriend? Just for a few minutes. Talia stared at him. You want me to what? I'll pay you, he said quickly. Whatever you need. I saw your reaction to that text earlier. If it's money problems, I can help. Her mind raced. This was crazy, absolutely insane. But she thought about Marcus's tuition, about the eviction notice she'd hidden in her purse, and she thought about the desperation in his eyes. Okay, she whispered. Relief flooded his face. Thank you, just follow my lead. He turned back to the group, slipping his arm around Talia's waist with surprising naturalness. Uncle, he said in English, his voice carrying new confidence, I'd like you to meet someone very important to me. The elderly man's eyes narrowed as he took in Talia's appearance, her server's uniform, her dark skin, her obvious nervousness. This is Talia Reed, Mr. Kang continued. My girlfriend. The words hit the group like a physical blow. The young woman's composure cracked slightly. The elderly man's face went through several shades of red. Ren, the elderly man said, his accent thick with anger. What is the meaning of this? Ren. So that was his real name. The meaning, Ren said calmly, is that I'm already in love with someone I chose. His uncle launched into rapid Korean, his voice rising with each word. Ren responded in the same language, but his tone remained steady, almost defiant. The argument continued, growing more heated. Other diners were openly staring now. Then his uncle said something that made Ren's entire body go rigid. English, Ren said sharply. If you're going to insult her, have the courage to do it in a language she understands. His uncle's smile was cold. Very well. I was simply pointing out that this person is clearly not suitable for someone of your position. A waitress? Really, Ren? Talia felt heat flood her cheeks. She started to step away, but Ren's arm tightened around her. Careful, Uncle, Ren said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. You're talking about the woman I love. The words were supposed to be pretend, part of the act, but something in the way he said them made them feel real. Love? His uncle laughed harshly. This is infatuation, nothing more. Marry Hyejin as planned, and keep your little waitress as a mistress if you must. The casual cruelty of it hit Talia like a slap. Ren went very still beside her. Apologize, he said quietly. I will do no such thing. This charade has gone far enough. That's when Ren moved. He stepped forward, putting himself between Talia and his uncle, his posture shifting into something that made every person in the restaurant take an unconscious step back. Let me be very clear, he said, his voice carrying an authority that made the air itself seem heavier. Talia is under my protection. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. His uncle's face went pale. Whatever power dynamic existed between them, Ren had just shifted it decisively. You would threaten your own family for this girl. I would protect the woman I love from anyone, Ren said simply, including family. The silence stretched taut. Then the young woman, Hyejin, who had been watching the entire exchange with calculating eyes, spoke up. I think, she said carefully, that a man who would stand up to his family for love might actually be worth marrying. But not to me. She smiled slightly. I have no interest in being second choice to a waitress who clearly has his heart. She turned to Ren's uncle. The engagement is off. With that, she walked out of the restaurant, leaving stunned silence in her wake. Ren's uncle stared after her, then turned back to his nephew with fury, and something that might have been grudging respect. This isn't over, he said in Korean. Yes, it is, Ren replied in English. His uncle and his entourage left without another word, but Talia could see the promise of future consequences in the elderly man's eyes. The restaurant slowly returned to normal, but Talia remained frozen in place, processing what had just happened. Talia, Ren said softly, his arm still around her waist. Are you okay? She looked up at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. The expensive suit, the way other people deferred to him, the casual authority with which he'd just defied his family. Who are you? She whispered. His expression grew guarded. Someone you probably shouldn't get involved with. Too late for that, don't you think? Before he could respond, a small voice piped up from booth 23. Daddy, is Talia going to be my new mum? They both turned to see Liam watching them with bright, hopeful eyes. Ren's face went through several expressions: panic, embarrassment, and something softer. It's complicated, buddy, he said gently, but you like her. Liam said with devastating directness. I can tell. Talia's heart clenched. When was the last time someone had noticed something that small about her? Actually, Talia interrupted, surprising herself, I think we need to talk, privately. The alley behind La Lune Rosa was quiet, lit only by the security light above the back door. The moment they were alone, the pretense fell away. My name is Ren J. Myung, he began. I run, let's call it a business empire. Some of it's legal, some of it exists in grey areas, and some of it would be very difficult to explain to the police. Talia's stomach dropped. You're telling me you're a criminal. I'm telling you I'm a businessman who operates in a world where the lines are often blurred. His voice was matter-of-fact. My family has been in this business for 3 generations. I inherited it when my father died, including arranged marriages. He ran a hand through his hair. My uncle believes that marrying Hee-jin would strengthen our position. More territory, more influence, more power. And you don't want that? I want my son to grow up in a world where he has choices, Ren said quietly. Where he can be whatever makes him happy, instead of inheriting a legacy of violence and obligation. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. So you used me, she said, but without anger. Yes, and I'm sorry for that. But Talia, he stepped closer. When I looked at you tonight, when you talked to Liam like he mattered, when you treated me like a person instead of a title, I remembered what it felt like to want something real. Her heart was beating too fast. This is crazy. I don't know anything about your world. Good, he said firmly. It's not a world anyone should have to know about. But you're in it. I'm trying to get out of it, or at least change it into something better. He paused. My uncle won't give up easily. Tonight was just the opening move. Talia felt a chill. What kind of threats? The kind that could involve anyone I care about. The implication hung between them. By claiming her as his girlfriend, he'd made her a target. What have you done? She whispered. I've put you in danger, he said bluntly. And I hate myself for it. But I can also protect you, if you'll let me. Protect me how? Security, a safe place to stay. Financial support so you don't have to worry about whatever was in that text that upset you earlier. The offer was tempting, more than tempting, but it also felt like selling herself. I'm not a kept woman, she said firmly. I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking you to let me help while we figure out what happens next. What happens next? Ren was quiet for a moment. I don't know. This was supposed to be temporary, but now... He looked at her with something that made her breath catch. Now I can't stop thinking about what it felt like to have you in my arms. The words hit her like a physical blow. You don't know me, she said weakly. Then let me learn. Before she could respond, the back door burst open. Marco appeared, looking frantic. Talia, there are men inside asking about you. Expensive suits, serious faces. They're making the other customers nervous. Ren went rigid. What kind of men? They're sitting at table 12, but they keep looking toward booth 23 where the kid is. Shit. Ren was already moving. They're watching Liam. They rushed back into the restaurant. Talia could immediately spot the men Marco had mentioned. 3 Korean men in dark suits, positioned strategically around the dining room. Liam was still in booth 23, but he looked scared now. Ren slid into the booth beside his son, his movements casual but his voice urgent. Hey buddy, how about we take the rest of your dinner to go? Are those men here because of what happened earlier? Liam asked quietly. Ren's jaw tightened. His son was too perceptive for his own good. Maybe, but don't worry about it. As Ren signaled for the check, one of the men stood and approached their table. He spoke in Korean, his tone respectful but firm. Ren responded in the same language, but Talia could hear the tension underneath his calm words. The man glanced at Liam, then at Talia and said something else. Ren's response was sharp, final. The man nodded and returned to his table, but he didn't leave. What did he say? Talia asked. He reminded me that family is important, Wren said grimly, and that children need stability. The threat was clear. Comply, or Liam's safety might be at risk. There has to be another way, she said quietly. There is. Wren looked at her with an expression that was equal parts hope and desperation. But it would require you to trust me completely. What are you asking? I'm asking you to make this real, to actually be my girlfriend, at least publicly. Long enough for me to consolidate power and push back against my uncle's influence. The offer hung in the air between them. Safety, security, a chance to be part of something bigger than her small, struggling life, but also danger, deception, and a world she didn't understand. And if I say no? Then I'll make sure you're safe anyway. But Liam and I... He looked at his son. We'll figure out another way. Talia looked at Liam, who was watching her with hopeful eyes. This little boy who had already started thinking of her as part of his family. Then she looked at Wren, who was offering her everything she'd ever wanted. I need time to think, she said. Of course, but Talia... He reached across the table and touched her hand gently. Whatever you decide, I want you to know that tonight changed something for me. Before she could respond, one of the men at table 12 stood again. This time he walked directly to their booth. Mr. Kang, he said in accented English, your uncle would like to speak with you, privately. Wren's hand tightened on Talia's. Tell my uncle I'm having dinner with my family. The man's gaze flicked to Liam, and something cold passed over his features. He was very insistent, the man said quietly. The threat was unmistakable now. Wren closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, his expression had changed. The businessman was gone, replaced by something harder, more dangerous. Liam, he said calmly, go with Talia to the bathroom. Wait there until I come get you. But Daddy... Now! The authority in his voice brooked no argument. Liam slid out of the booth and Talia automatically took his hand. In the bathroom, Liam looked up at her with worried eyes. Is my dad in trouble? He asked. Talia knelt down to his level. I think your dad is trying to protect you. Are you going to help him? The question caught her off guard. I don't know if I can. You made him smile, Liam said simply. He doesn't smile very much anymore, not since Mom died. Talia's heart clenched. When did your mom die, sweetheart? 2 years ago. She got sick. Liam's voice was matter-of-fact, but she could see the lingering sadness. Daddy says she's watching over us, but I think he's still really sad about it. Suddenly, everything made more sense. Wren's desperation to avoid an arranged marriage, his protectiveness over his son, the way he'd looked at her like she was a lifeline. The bathroom door opened, and Wren appeared. His expression was grim but controlled. Everything okay? Talia asked. For now, but we need to leave. All of us. He looked at her directly. I know you need time to think, but I'm asking you to come with us tonight. Just until we know it's safe. Talia looked at Liam, who was watching her with hopeful eyes, then at Wren, who was trying to hide his own desperation. She thought about her tiny apartment with its broken heater and overdue bills, about Marcus's tuition and her own uncertain future, and she thought about the way Wren had stepped between her and his uncle's insults. Okay, she said quietly, but just for tonight. Relief flooded Wren's face. Thank you. As they left the restaurant together, Talia couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into a story much bigger and more dangerous than anything she'd ever imagined. But for the first time in years, she wasn't facing it alone. Wren's penthouse was nothing like Talia had expected. She'd imagined something cold and modern. Instead, she found herself in a space that was warm and lived in, with comfortable furniture, family photos, and Liam's artwork covering the refrigerator. Liam, go get ready for bed, Wren said gently. School tomorrow. But I want to show Talia my room. Tomorrow, buddy, it's already past your bedtime. Liam hugged Talia goodnight, a gesture so natural and trusting that it made her chest tight, then disappeared down a hallway. Alone with Wren, the reality of her situation hit her fully. I should call in sick tomorrow, she said. You don't have to worry about work, Ren said quietly. I spoke to Marco. You're taking a leave of absence. Paid. She spun around. You can't just... I can. And I did. Talia, after tonight, it's not safe for you to go back to your normal routine. My uncle will have people watching the restaurant, your apartment, anywhere you might go. For how long? I don't know. Until I can convince him that this relationship is real and permanent, or until I can consolidate enough power to push back. And how long will that take? Months, maybe longer. The weight of what she'd agreed to settled on her shoulders. I can't do this. Yes, you can. He stepped closer. You're stronger than you know, Talia. I saw it tonight. The way you stood up to my uncle's insults. The way you protected Liam without even thinking about it. This isn't my world, Ren. I don't know how to be the kind of woman who belongs here. You don't have to be anyone other than who you are. He moved closer. That's what drew me to you in the first place. You're real in a world full of people playing roles. But this is a role. You're asking me to pretend to be your girlfriend. Am I? His voice was quiet, intense, because it didn't feel like pretending when I kissed you tonight. The memory hit her like a physical blow, the taste of him, the way her body had responded without permission. That was just adrenaline, she said weakly. Was it? He was close enough now that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Because I've been in plenty of high-stress situations, and I've never wanted to kiss anyone the way I wanted to kiss you. Her breath caught. Ren. And I know this is crazy. I know I have no right to ask this of you, but Talia, what if it doesn't have to be pretend? Before she could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her heart sank. It's my brother. Take it, Ren said, stepping back. Hey, Marcus, she answered. Talia, thank God, I've been calling you for hours. Where are you? I'm with a friend. What's wrong? I went by your apartment to drop off some papers, and there were guys there, guys in suits asking your neighbors about you. Talia's blood went cold. She looked at Ren, who had gone very still. What kind of questions? She asked. Where you work, who you spend time with if you have a boyfriend. Mrs. Chen said they seemed really interested in your schedule. Ren was already moving, pulling out his phone and typing rapidly. Marcus, listen to me carefully, Talia said. I need you to stay away from my apartment for a while. And if anyone approaches you asking about me, don't tell them anything. Talia, you're scaring me. What's going on? I'm involved in something complicated, she said finally. But I'm safe. I just need you to trust me. This is about a guy, isn't it? Marcus's voice sharpened. Talia, if someone is threatening you, no one is threatening me, she lied. I just need some time to sort things out. After she hung up, Ren looked at her with grim sympathy. They're moving fast, he said, faster than I expected. They're watching my brother now, probably just gathering information. But Talia, this proves what I was afraid of. You can't go back to your normal life, not until this is resolved. The reality of it hit her like a wave. Her apartment, her job, her independence, all of it was gone, at least temporarily. I need some air, she said, moving toward the balcony doors. The lights below seemed impossibly far away, like she was looking down at a life she used to live but could never return to. Ren appeared beside her, silent for a moment. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I never wanted it to go this far, this fast. But you knew it would, she said, without looking at him. You knew that claiming me would make me a target. Yes. At least he was honest. So what happens now? She asked. That's one option. What's the other? Ren was quiet for a long moment. The other option is that we stop pretending this is temporary, that we make this real, build something together that's strong enough to withstand whatever my uncle throws at us. She turned to look at him. You're talking about a real relationship, with someone you've known for exactly one evening. I'm talking about taking a chance on something that feels right, even if the timing is wrong. He met her eyes. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment you recommended that wine. Ren, you don't know me. You don't know that I have student loans I'll be paying off until I'm 50. You don't know that I haven't had a real relationship in 2 years because I work too much to date. Then tell me, he said simply. Tell me all of it. I want to know. Why? Because for the first time in years, I met someone who looked at me and saw a person instead of a position. Someone who was kind to my son without expecting anything in return. He stepped closer. Because when I kissed you tonight, it felt like coming home. The words hung between them, honest and raw and terrifying. This is crazy, she whispered. The best things usually are. Before she could respond, the sound of breaking glass came from inside the apartment. Ren was moving before she could process what was happening, pushing her behind him as he pulled a gun from somewhere she hadn't seen him carrying one. Stay here, he ordered. Don't move. He disappeared into the apartment, leaving her alone on the balcony with her heart hammering. Then she heard Liam's voice, high and scared. Daddy! Every instinct she had screamed at her to run toward that sound. The decision was made for her when she heard Ren's voice, calm but commanding. Talia, it's okay, come inside. She found him in the living room, gun still in his hand but lowered, standing protectively in front of Liam. The coffee table was overturned, and there was broken glass scattered across the floor. But they were alone. What happened? She asked. Someone threw a brick through the window, Ren said grimly. With a message. He handed her a piece of paper. The message was in Korean, but someone had written an English translation underneath. Family obligations cannot be avoided forever. They were here. Talia's voice came out smaller than she intended. Long enough to make their point. Ren's expression was grim. Liam was pressed against his father's side, still in his pajamas, eyes wide with fear. Daddy, why did someone break our window? Ren holstered his gun and knelt down to his son's level. Some people are upset with me about a business decision, but it's going to be okay. He stood and pulled out his phone, speaking in rapid Korean. The conversation was brief but intense. When he hung up, he looked at Talia with an expression she couldn't read. Pack whatever you need, Jung, he said. We're leaving. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere my uncle can't reach us while I figure out how to end this. 20 minutes later, they were in Ren's car, a sleek black sedan. Liam was in the back seat, clutching a stuffed animal and trying to be brave. I don't have anything, Talia said, realizing she had nothing to pack. We'll get you whatever you need, Ren said without hesitation. As they drove through the city, Talia watched the familiar neighborhoods pass by and felt like she was leaving her entire life behind. Where exactly are we going? She asked. I have a house outside the city. Secure. Private. My uncle knows about it. But he also knows that attacking it would be an act of war. Act of war? There are rules in my world, Talia, lines that even family doesn't cross. Attacking someone's private residence, threatening their child. Those are declarations of total war. And your uncle is willing to risk that? He's desperate. The marriage alliance was worth millions to him. Without it, he loses face, loses influence, loses money. Ren glanced at her. Desperate people make dangerous choices. The house was beautiful, a modern structure nestled in the hills, all glass and natural wood. Security lights illuminated the driveway as they approached. This one is special, Ren said as he carried a sleeping Liam inside. I designed it myself, had it built after Liam was born. It was supposed to be our family retreat. The interior was warm and inviting, with family photos covering the mantel. Ren and a beautiful Korean woman, Liam as a baby, candid shots of family gatherings. She was lovely, Talia said, looking at a photo of Liam's mother. She was. Ren's voice was soft with memory. She would have liked you. How can you know that? Because she believed that family was about choice, not blood. That love was about seeing someone clearly and choosing them anyway. He looked at Talia directly. She would have seen what I see in you. And what's that? Strength, kindness, the courage to stand up for what's right even when it's scary. He paused. The ability to make a broken man remember what it feels like to hope. Ren, she started, but he shook his head. I know this is overwhelming. I know I'm asking too much, too fast, but Talia, I need you to know that this isn't just about the marriage arrangement anymore. He stepped closer. This is about the fact that I'm falling in love with you. Real love. The kind that changes everything. Her heart stopped. You can't know that. It's been one day. Sometimes one day is enough. Sometimes you meet someone and you just know. He reached up and touched her face gently. I know this is crazy. I know the timing is terrible and the circumstances are impossible. But Talia, what if we stopped fighting this and just let it happen? She looked into his eyes and saw everything she'd been afraid to hope for. Genuine affection, respect, the promise of being seen and valued and loved. What if it doesn't work? She whispered. What if it does? Before she could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. It's my uncle. He answered the phone, speaking in Korean. The conversation was brief but heated. When he hung up, his face was grim. What did he say? He's giving me 24 hours to reconsider. After that, he's going to make this personal. What does that mean? It means he's going to come after you directly. And Liam. The weight of it settled on her shoulders. She wasn't just playing a role anymore. She was a target. Maybe I should leave, she said quietly. Let you handle this without worrying about me. No. His voice was firm, final. Running won't solve this. He'll find you, and when he does, I won't be there to protect you. So what do we do? Ren was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried a new determination. We stop playing defense. We make this real, make it public, make it impossible for him to break us apart. How? He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. We get married. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? Think about it, Talia. If we're married, you're family. Attacking you would be attacking me directly, which even my uncle wouldn't risk. Ren, that's insane. We can't get married. We barely know each other. We know enough. He stepped closer. We know that we care about each other. We know that we want to protect Liam. We know that there's something real between us. But marriage doesn't have to be forever if you don't want it to be. But right now, it's the only way to keep you safe and give us the time we need to build something real. She stared at him, trying to process what he was asking. You want me to marry you to save us both from your uncle? I want you to marry me because I love you, he said simply. The fact that it also solves our immediate problem is just a bonus. You don't love me. You can't. It's been one day. Then explain this, he said, cupping her face in his hands. Explain why I can't stop thinking about you. Why the thought of you being hurt makes me want to burn down the world. His thumb brushed across her lips. Explain why when I kissed you, it felt like coming home. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the intensity of his gaze, the sincerity in his voice. This is crazy, she whispered. The best things usually are, he repeated softly. When she opened her eyes, she saw everything she'd been afraid to want reflected in his expression. Love, commitment, the promise of a future she'd never dared to imagine. If I say yes, she said quietly, if I marry you, what happens then? Then we build a life together. We protect Liam, we face down my uncle, and we see what this thing between us can become. And if it doesn't work out, then at least we'll know we tried, that we chose love over fear. She looked at this man who was offering her everything, protection, security, love, a family, and realized that somewhere in the space of one impossible day, she had started to fall for him too. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Yes, I'll marry you. The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise, warm and bright and full of promise. You won't regret this, he said, pulling her into his arms. I already do, she said, but she was smiling too. This is the craziest thing I've ever done. Good, he murmured against her hair. Crazy looks good on you. As he held her, Talia felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Real, genuine hope for a future that included love and family and happiness. And when Ren tilted her chin up and kissed her, slow and deep and full of promise. She kissed him back with everything she had, choosing love over fear, hope over safety. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too," she whispered back, and meant it. Tomorrow they would face his uncle, the complications of merging their worlds. But tonight they had each other, and for now that was enough. The wedding happened faster than Talia could have imagined. Within 48 hours, Wren had arranged everything: a small ceremony at the house, an efficient witnesses and enough security to protect a head of state. It wasn't the wedding she'd dreamed of as a little girl, but it was real, and it was theirs. Marcus arrived that morning, still confused but supportive after Wren had personally called to explain the situation. Her brother had been skeptical until he saw the way Wren looked at her, like she was the most precious thing in the world. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked as she got ready in the guest bedroom. "No," Talia said honestly, adjusting the simple white dress Wren had somehow procured in her exact size. "But I'm sure about him. He better be good to you," Marcus said fiercely. "Or Korean Mafia boss or not, he'll answer to me." She hugged her brother tightly. "I love you too." The ceremony itself was beautiful in its simplicity. They stood in the garden overlooking the hills, with Liam as ring-bearer, and Marcus walking her down the makeshift aisle. Wren wore a perfectly tailored black suit, but his eyes never left her face. When the officiant asked for their vows, Wren spoke first. "Talia," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, "3 days ago I was a man going through the motions of living. You changed that. You made me remember what it felt like to hope, to want something more than just survival." He took her hands in his. "I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to build a life with you that's worthy of the gift you've given me. I promise to love you, not just for who you are today, but for who you're becoming, who we're becoming together." Talia's eyes filled with tears as she spoke her own vows. "Wren, you've given me something I never thought I'd have. A family. Not just you and Liam, but the feeling of belonging somewhere, of being chosen." Her voice caught slightly. "I promise to stand by you, to face whatever comes together, to love you and Liam with everything I have." When they kissed to seal their marriage, it felt different from that first desperate kiss in the restaurant. This was a promise, a beginning, a choice they were making together. Liam cheered loudly, and even Marcus was smiling, but the celebration was short-lived. As they were cutting the small cake, Wren's phone rang. His expression darkened as he answered. "What?" Talia asked when he hung up. "My uncle. He's calling a family meeting. Tonight." Wren's jaw was tight. "He wants to meet my new wife." The meeting was held at a traditional Korean restaurant that Wren's family had been using for business for decades. As they walked in, Talia in an elegant black dress, Wren in another perfect suit, she could feel the weight of every gaze in the room. The family was assembled around a large table: Wren's uncle, several other older Korean men, and a few younger ones who looked like they might be cousins or business associates. The atmosphere was tense, formal, and distinctly unwelcoming. Wren's uncle stood as they approached, his expression cold but polite. "So," he said in accented English, "this is the woman who has stolen my nephew's scents." "Uncle," Wren said calmly, "I'd like you to meet my wife, Talia Kang." The use of her new name sent a thrill through her, even in these circumstances. "Mrs. Kang," his uncle said with a slight bow that somehow managed to be both respectful and insulting. How unexpected. "Mr. Han," Talia replied, matching his formal tone. "Thank you for welcoming me into the family." They sat down to what was ostensibly a family dinner, but felt more like a business negotiation. The conversation flowed between English and Korean, with Wren translating when necessary. It became clear that his uncle was testing her, asking pointed questions about her background, her intentions, her understanding of what she'd married into. "Tell me, Mrs. Kang," he said during the main course, "what do you know about our family's business? I know that it's complicated," Talia said carefully, "and I know that Wren is working to build something better for the next generation." "Ah," Yes, the next generation. His uncle's smile was sharp. And what about children of your own? Surely you understand the importance of continuing the family line. The question was clearly designed to embarrass her, to point out how quickly this marriage had happened. But before she could answer, Ren spoke up. Our family plans are our own business, Uncle, just as our marriage is our own choice. Choice, his uncle repeated, as if the word left a bad taste in his mouth. In my day we understood duty, obligation, the good of the family over personal desires. And look where that got us, Ren said quietly. 3 generations of marriages without love, children raised by nannies, women treated like property to be traded. The table went very quiet. I want something different for my son, Ren continued. I want him to see what real partnership looks like, what it means to choose someone and be chosen in return. His uncle's face was stone. Pretty words, but this woman... He gestured dismissively toward Talia. What does she bring to this family besides her? Exotic appeal. The casual racism hit like a slap, but before Talia could respond, Ren was on his feet. Careful, Uncle, he said, his voice deadly quiet. You're talking about my wife. I'm talking about a waitress who has somehow convinced you to throw away everything our family has built. No, Ren said firmly. You're talking about the woman who makes my son laugh again, who sees the man I want to be, instead of just the legacy I inherited, who had the courage to stand here tonight and face down a room full of people who want her gone. He looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. Talia is my wife. She is Liam's mother now. She is part of this family whether you accept it or not, and anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. The silence stretched taut. Then his uncle spoke, his voice cold with finality. Very well, but understand this, nephew. You have made your choice. Now live with the consequences. He stood and walked out, followed by most of the other family members. Only one person remained, a younger man who looked like he might be Ren's cousin. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think you're brave. Both of you. He nodded to Talia respectfully, before leaving them alone at the table. Well, Talia said after a moment, that went better than expected. Ren looked at her in surprise, then started laughing, really laughing, the kind that comes from relief and exhaustion and the absurdity of everything. How can you joke about this? He asked. Because the alternative is crying, she said honestly, and I refuse to give him the satisfaction. Ren reached across the table and took her hand. I'm sorry, Dee, he said. I'm sorry you had to sit through that. I'm sorry my family is... Your family, she interrupted gently, is you and Liam. The rest of them. They'll either come around or they won't. But it doesn't change what we have. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. How did I get so lucky? He murmured. I ask myself the same question every day. As they left the restaurant together, Talia felt something she hadn't expected. Relief. The worst was over. They'd faced down his uncle, declared their commitment publicly, and survived. Whatever came next, they would face it together. So, she said as they got into the car, what now? Now, Ren said, starting the engine, we go home. We tuck Liam into bed, and we start building our life together. Just like that. Just like that. As they drove through the city toward their new home, Talia thought about how much her life had changed in just a few days. A week ago, she'd been a struggling waitress with no prospects and no hope. Now she was married to a man who loved her, stepmother to a boy who had already claimed her heart, and part of a family that was complicated and dangerous, but undeniably real. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It was better. Time had passed since that first impossible night at La Lune Rossa, and Talia still sometimes couldn't believe this was her life. She stood in the kitchen of their family home, watching Ren help Liam with his homework at the table. At 12, Liam was all legs and curiosity, asking questions about everything and challenging his father's answers with the confidence of a boy who had never doubted he was loved. Mum, tell Dad that Shakespeare isn't boring, Liam called out. Your father thinks Shakespeare is boring, Talia asked, raising an eyebrow at her husband. I think, Wren said carefully, that there are more interesting ways to spend an evening. That's literally every action movie you've ever watched, Talia pointed out. Liam grinned. She's got you there, Dad. Wren caught Talia's eye and smiled, the same smile that had made her heart skip that first night, though now it was warmed by years of shared mornings and quiet evenings. The transition hadn't been easy. Wren's uncle had fought the marriage viciously, but eventually they'd reached a cold peace. Wren had consolidated his power, gradually moving the family business toward legitimate enterprises. Talia had gone back to school, finishing her degree with Wren's support. She now ran the charitable foundation they'd established together, focusing on education for underprivileged youth. How was your day? Wren asked as she joined them at the table. Good. The scholarship program approved 15 new recipients for next semester. She smiled, including Marcus. Wren's expression warmed. Her brother had been skeptical at first, but Wren had won him over with patience and genuine care. That's wonderful, Wren said. Speaking of working hard, Talia said, looking at Liam's homework, how's the Shakespeare coming along? Better now that I understand it's basically a really old soap opera with sword fights, Liam said cheerfully. Wren laughed, a sound that still made Talia's heart flutter. Where did you get that interpretation? Mom explained it to me earlier. Your mother is a very wise woman, Wren said, reaching over to squeeze Talia's hand. The wisest, Liam agreed solemnly. She married you. Didn't she? Talia burst out laughing at Wren's mock-offended expression. You're both terrible. But you love us anyway, Liam said, grinning. Unfortunately, yes, she said, ruffling his hair. Even when you gang up on me. As the evening wound down, and Liam headed off to finish his homework in his room, Talia and Wren cleaned up the kitchen together, a routine they'd developed over the years, comfortable and domestic and perfect in its ordinariness. Do you ever miss it? Wren asked quietly as they worked. Your old life, I mean. The simplicity of it. It was a question he asked sometimes, usually when he was feeling guilty about how dramatically he'd changed her world. No, she said, and meant it. Do you know what I was doing this time 3 years ago? Working a double shift, coming home to an empty apartment, falling asleep to the sound of my neighbors fighting through thin walls. I was surviving, not living. She dried her hands and turned to face him. She gestured around the kitchen, toward the sound of Liam's music playing from his room, toward the life they'd built together. This is living. This is everything I never knew I wanted. Wren pulled her into his arms, holding her close in the way that still made her feel safe and cherished and home. I love you, he murmured against her hair. More every day. I love you too, she whispered back. Even if you do think Shakespeare is boring. He laughed, pulling back to look at her. Maybe you can change my mind. We could read Romeo and Juliet together. Only if you promise not to make fun of the balcony scene. I make no such promises, he said, grinning. As they headed upstairs together, Talia caught a glimpse of their wedding photo on the hallway table. A small, intimate ceremony with just family and close friends, but filled with more joy and love than she'd thought possible. She thought about that scared, overwhelmed woman who had agreed to a fake relationship to help a stranger avoid an arranged marriage, who could never have imagined that one desperate kiss would lead to this, a real marriage, a loving family, a life beyond her wildest dreams. Sometimes the best things really were crazy, and sometimes, if you were very lucky, crazy led you exactly where you were meant to be. Thanks for watching until the end. Korean Mafia Lovers has many more captivating stories. Hit subscribe, because with your help, we keep creating these amazing love stories.